Okay, so I'm going to do a quick Zephandria time jump update for people who want to make decisions about their time jumps before the season starts. So overall, there's some pretty difficult stuff that happens for Zephandria in general. It involves a lot of it involves these creatures that people have been running into, sort of childlike creatures that are undead, and they tend to take over cities, and that trend continues in a big way through the time jump. So a lot of our battles will have to do with confronting that, dealing with that, seeing how that turns out. But overall, it doesn't look good. A few things to know. Autoton in general, the country Autoton, while they're doing okay overall, the political system is coming apart. Their whole pacifist system of hierarchies and having different people as guards and the Tempari and all that. That's just completely coming apart. They're having a major revolution there, and Autoton as this major sort of stable structure is being lost. So that's a big upset. And unless a lot of people get involved in stopping that, Autoton will be not a major government in the next coming season, because they really get hit hard in this. Tempari doing much better. Some difficulty with maintaining their independence. They get drawn into the Autoton War, so we'll see where that goes. Tikal is really good, though. They're moving towards independence. They wanted independence for a long time, and that seems to have gone pretty well. Aaron Chen, wanting to be isolationist, seems to be doing just fine at that. The Tong, interestingly enough, have had some interesting problems. They've gained a lot of ground and sort of as a country that is more of a big player in the bigger affairs and kind of have taken some bigger strides, but they just got smashed by this effect of the undead beings, the Akudyad, and that has really wrecked all their military, and so they're kind of in shambles at this point. At least as it looks like it'll be. In terms of as a government, they're still strong, but their main systems are compromised. Kafri also just gets wrecked by the Akudyad. They seem to have a particular either weakness against them or a particular targeting by them, because they just get wrecked all across the board by the Akudyad. Grak Attack, not so much. They do all right. The Tolentarian also, it kind of difficult, rough, but not. They have a rough time, but not because of that. It's more just because of general way they try to run their government. The Mordanks, on the other hand, are doing very well. They have expanded. They have a major attack on Wei-Yin, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and that seems to be going pretty well, unfortunately, for most people. They get hit pretty hard at the beginning, but by the end of the time jump, it looks like they'll be very, very strong. The Quotanok, the kind of Elven-y group, they are having a hard time funding all of their expansive projects that they want to make, and they're getting drawn into wars as well. Mostly they're trying to stay out of it, and that seems to be going okay, but they're going to have some financial problems in the coming season. Like I said, Wei-Yin takes a heavy hit. It looks like their military and all their fighting forces get completely decimated, and that involves the characters, so I don't know if all the characters get completely annihilated as well. We'll have to find out. A few other areas, and some of their information has been secured, and in terms of keeping the story keepers alive, that seems to have happened. So that's at least a bright hope there. A lot of their wind singing has failed, and that's one of the reasons why they get wrecked. Given Dusk. Given Dusk also, major assault on Given Dusk, and just gets wrecked. They do seem to not to be able to hold off the Akudyad well. They seem to be fighting against them very efficiently, and some new vows have emerged out of there, which some of you know about, but some new vows involving Kafrina, which are now available for everybody to get, and there seems to be a new vow that has emerged, and that's a really interesting part of the plot we'll get to. Other ones in the further north, you've heard of some wars between Caliphin, which is one of the major sort of good aligned countries to the north, that they get really stomped in the north in a war with Dagdioth. That's not going really well. and their societies coming apart. Also, that the Akudayat have really wrecked into them, and so between the two, they don't do so well. So they'll need some help if they're going to survive. There's a few other countries out there you guys don't know a whole lot about, so I'm not going to go into them. Dagdath gets hit pretty hard right off, and their culture seems to be kind of coming apart up there. It seems like they too are being targeted by the Akudayat, and that is tearing apart their country and their structure and their culture, and they're having a hard time just keeping the whole systems that they have that keep their military alive and their military functioning working. Some of the really more interesting developments, I would say, I mean, all that's political stuff, but I mean, just on a much bigger scale, is that there is a major shift in the belief systems in Zephandria. People doubting whether the deities are even really on their side. People deciding whether maybe they won't worship the main deities they have worshipped for thousands of years, and that's caused a major disruption in just like a lot of cultures across the board. So there's a lot of this kind of doubtfulness about whether the deities are even something to be worshipped. Now that's caused some kind of like a lot of some political debate about it. Some changes in the way that people have worshipped, and some revisions of what they believe, and so it's kind of generated a little bit of like critical thinking about the deities and better ways to worship them in sort of more enlightened ways for some people, but for majority it's really looking bad for most of the deities, who look like the way their worship is taking a major hit, and that's a big problem. I think as you can see, the Akudayat are a major force for this. They are infiltrating all across, and that seems to be degrading people's belief in whether or not worshiping all the deities is the right way to do things. And so the societies are coming apart on that end of the scale. I guess there's been a lot of attrition of people's militaries, troops, that sort of thing. So it's very a lot of countries are very ripe for conquest, and it looks like Mordanks are on the front of that. So that doesn't look good for next season. This assumes that all of you are doing your usual to help out in any way you can and protect everything that you would, and all of your political roles are therefore less. So, not the best outlook for a fairly neutral time jump, but that's what we get. So, look forward to running some of this stuff and seeing if we can shift it in any other directions, or if it's just going to get a lot worse. In terms of innkeepers, they seem to survive. That looks fine. The Hornwind looks like they take some pretty rough situations. We'll see how they survive in the battles, but no definite PDs or anything there of innkeepers that you know. Alright, so I think that's it. Bye.